we would normally have Ben Hollingsworth joining us. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it, so we have had a change to the presentation that we're going to do. Peter Rowlands, business partner Peter Rowlands, is joining us. Hi, Pete.
Hi, evening. Evening.
Uh, Pete is a property sourcer, and by being a property sourcer, he deals with options for low market value properties. And we know that there's a lot of interest out there about options. So what we're going to do today is just focus on one part, which is what an option is and how we find the people that want to sell or want to allow us to use options on their property. So as I said, my name is Karen Newton and I'm joined with Peter Rowlands tonight. And
Hi,
what we're
Karen.
going to cover then is we're going to look at some different types of options, but we're also going to look at how we find sellers and how we deal with them. And that's one of the biggest questions that come up when we talk about options. So different types of options. There are two key options that we use mainly through the 2073 Club. The first one is a traditional lease option. And Pete, would you like to tell us about the lease options that you put together?
Yes, we do. We do quite a bit with lease options, to be honest. And there's a variety of reasons why people want to do a lease option and why they want to sell. Just to explain quickly the basics of what a lease option is. A lease option allows you to effectively take control of a property without having to find a large deposit. Typically, you have to find a 25% deposit to buy a property. A lease option gives you the power of attorney over that property with an agreement and an option to buy at the end of the lease. So if you have a 5-year lease, you can take over the property. You have to continue paying the lease agreement fee, which is effectively the mortgage. And then at the end of the lease, the end of the term, you can then buy that property for the agreed price that you set at the beginning. Therefore, the idea is that over that period of time, the property would have increased in value, and that's where you make your money from it, because you can still buy at that starting point, and you haven't had to lay out a large sum of money at the start.
Yeah, lease options give a fantastic opportunity to actually get into property.
It
And
is, and we're seeing a few more of them now coming through as well for lots of different reasons. But as you say, it is a fantastic way to start off in property if you haven't got the money to do a traditional mortgage.
one of the key things with a lease option, and one of the things to particularly remember when you're using a lease option, is that the money you make on a month-by-month basis is only a small amount.
Yes.
And from my point of view, if I'm making 100 to maybe 150, 200, that is 200 would probably be the top of the range that you'd be looking at making on a lease.
Yes.
Monthly payments, you agree with that, Pete?
Yes, absolutely. As I say, over a lease option, you make enough each month. You make a little bit of profit each month, but really the real profit in a lease option is at the end when you buy the property, because that's where the value of the property is increased. I know I've had people in the past look at lease options and think, well, a lease option doesn't work because you can't make enough money month by month. And to an extent, they are right, yes. But as I say, you don't really make the money month by month or the lease. It's at the end when you come to buy the property. That's where the real profit is.
Yeah, because you've got all that capital gains on the property then, haven't you?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other type of option that I tend to use is what's called a rent to buy option. Now, rent to buy is a bit different. There are two types of rent to buy. First one is where you have a short period of time. It could be 2, 3 years. You make monthly payments. All the payments come off the cost of the property. And then at the end of that period, you have a lump sum of money that you need to pay to own the property. And that's becoming more popular because I know there's quite a few sellers want money up front to move on to other projects. But you can also do rent options where you agree a term, and at the end of that term, everything you've paid goes off the property and you own the property outright. For example, I have a option, a rent to buy option. It's spread over 30 years, and it's treated like a mortgage. So in effect, I've got a seller finance. So I am paying money off the mortgage, sorry, capital off the property plus some interest to the vendor. And at the end of the term, I own the property. But I also have another option that is 10 years, paying £1,000 a month, and at the end of the 10 years, I own that property outright. The whole thousand goes off the cost of the property. So I tend to use rent to buy options, particularly for properties that I'm buying overseas. But there are a wide variety of options. Uh, I think you could write books and books and books about the different types that are out there. But I know the key for Peter and myself is lease options and rent to buy options.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, two good options, fair play.
So the very first question that I know I hear it all the time from people that we do training with, and I think you get that as well, Pete, is
yes.
How do you find sellers?
Yes, there are lots of ways of finding sellers, to be honest. When I started doing this and property sourcing, the first properties I found were on Gumtree, and Gumtree is a good place to start looking. It's cheap; it doesn't cost you anything to look. And if you're looking on Gumtree, what I tend to look for is properties that have been on there longer. The longer they've been on there, the more chance there is of you actually being able to do a deal with them. So certainly over a month, but if it's been there 2, 3, 4 months, then they're a good opportunity to approach people. And generally, the first thing I do is just send them an email, inquire about the property, and find out if they are looking to do a deal on the property. I say that's the first place I started, and it's quite successful. Even eBay is again a good place. You can buy anything on eBay these days, and if there are properties on eBay, keep an eye on all these things. And if it's on eBay, contact the seller and just find out if they are open to do a deal on things. If you don't ask the question, you never know, because you don't know what their circumstances are and why they might want to be selling. So it's a really good way again of finding people. One of the best ways, or the most successful ways we have of finding properties is through leaflet drops. We distribute leaflets, and it's just a simple leaflet asking people if they're looking to sell their properties. If they are, to contact us. And we've had quite a lot of success with leaflets. Now it's one of our main ways of finding sellers, to be honest. The online stuff, again, there are lots of property groups out there, and you can join any of these groups, and people will be on there selling properties, buying properties. There are all sorts of sources online. You just type into Google houses for sale. So there's lots of good sources online to find properties. The agents is something I haven't personally had a lot of success with. I try to deal with agents. There are a couple of agents that are quite friendly towards us and are prepared to talk to us about this. But I have found in the past that agents can be quite protective about their properties, and they don't really want to deal with property sources. Some will. Some will say, I think it's largely a case of educating agents as to what we do. For instance, there was a property lately that we were looking at. It had been on the market for over a year. We had a potential buyer for the property, and I contacted the agent and with a view to possibly doing a lease option or whatever on it, and asked them if they would be prepared to contact the owner and have a chat to them. basically they wasn't. As they seen it, I mean, we could have, if we'd have done a deal on that, we would have paid him £1,000 commission. So the estate agent would have got £1,000 commission. But as they seen it, the house was worth £300,000, and their fee for selling that was greater than £1,000. But it's been on the market for over a year. So my thinking, isn't it better to get £1,000 for selling something than nothing? Because if they can't sell it, eventually the seller is either going to take it off the market or put it with a different agent. And if they do that, then they're going to make nothing. So agents are quite a strange one. If you get the right agent and get a relationship with them, it can work really well. But I do find that a lot of agents are not particularly receptive to working with sources. But maybe time will change that. I don't know.
It is a shame because, like you said, it's a win-win for everybody. If agents come on board, then they get part of that win, don't they?
Yeah, it's, as I say, it's better to have £1,000 than nothing. It's, their commission on £300,000 is a lot more than £1,000, but they only get it if they sell it.
I've you and I do seminars together, and I know there was one seminar we did where you had recently helped a lady who couldn't sell her house. She'd had lots of
Yes.
problems, and you had a thank you card from her, and it was quite emotional when the thank you card was read out to the audience. Can you fill us in on that story and what happened there?
Yeah, it's a lovely lady, fair play. And in one way, she'd done everything right. On another way, she hadn't. And because she'd had her property, and she had her property for a while, and she had an interest-only mortgage on it. And first place, she realised it was 7 years left on the mortgage, and she realised that she was not going to be able to pay that mortgage off in 7 years' time. So she put the property up for sale, and she sold it, which was great. She sold the property. She thought, okay, I've sold the property, now I can move on. So she took on a council flat. That was her intention all along, which was great. She took the council flat and moved in. The only problem with that was that she didn't actually wait for the sale of her property to go through. She just assumed it was going to go through. And the sale fell through. So she was left in a position where she was renting the council flat and paying the rent on that, plus she had to pay the mortgage. And she didn't have enough money to pay the both. And she got herself in such a state with it that she had no idea what to do. She was on the verge of actually handing the keys back to the mortgage company, which, as we know, is a big mistake. And she had one of our leaflets into her door. She contacted us. We went to see her, had a chat to her about it, explained we couldn't sell it. There wasn't enough equity in the property for us to do a normal sale on it, or a B&B sale on it. So we discussed it with her about lease options. And as I say, she was in quite a state. She was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. She couldn't sleep at night or anything else. And she didn't have enough money to pay the mortgage that month. So, as I say, she was going to hand the keys back because she was in a state. So we managed to find a buyer instantly within a few days. We'd done the lease option for her. We made sure the mortgage was covered for her that month, and she could sleep at night. She contacted me after it went through, and she said that morning she was actually late for work because she hadn't slept properly in months, and she was so relieved. She was actually late for work. She overslept, and she, as you say, she sent us a wonderful thank you card, and I'm still in touch with her now, and I actually heard from her yesterday. So we keep in touch, and it's great. And if ever she has any problems, all she has to do is contact me, and we'll sort it out. But yeah, a lovely lady. We managed to help, and the thank you card meant an awful lot to us. It was a really nice thought.
It was. It's really sweet. So that takes us on to our next section, which is how do you deal with potential sellers?
Yeah, that's interesting. depending on how they come to us, we get, if it's a leaflet and they contact us, their first question to us is, right, how does this work? Generally, they know that it's going to be a below market value offer. So they're asking me questions about how it actually works, what we're going to offer them, how much percentage below the market value, and what about estate solicitors and getting solicitors and everything involved. And we have to be honest with them. I'm always completely upfront with them, which is moving on to the next section there, is you have to tell them exactly what we do. I don't make any bones about it. I tell them that I'm an investor, we work with investors, and we are looking for properties for investors, whether that's below market value properties or other options. And as I say, one of their first questions then is, okay, if it's going to be below market value, how much below market value is it going to be? And I try to explain that we can't give a definite figure because we work it, there's lots of different aspects that we work it out on. But to give them a general idea, it's usually round about 20% below the market value. But as I say, that can vary quite a lot. At that point, either they've decided, okay, well, that's not any good for us. We need the full market value for it, and they're not interested. Or if you're still open to discussions, what we try and do is find their reason why they are selling the property, and there can be a lot of different aspects. As I mentioned earlier, with the lady that had the property that she just couldn't pay the mortgage and needed to sell it. Everybody has their own reasons why they want to sell. And I always tell them, if they are looking to sell the property, they want the full market value, they want the cash for it, they might need to move up to need that money for a deposit on another house, then the best option is really to go to an estate agent. If they're not in any rush to sell it and they need the full value, an estate agent is still probably the best way to go. But if they need to sell it quickly for whatever reason, and it could be that in financial trouble, it could be that they've inherited the house and they just want to get rid of it. They don't want to put it with an estate agent and leave it there for months or even years trying to sell it. So if there's a good reason why they want to sell it quickly, then we can generally help them. If they want the full market value, then we can discuss lease options and rent to buys, etc. But it all depends on that person's reason why they're trying to sell it. And the whole thing is about building up a relationship. It's you get a phone call about a property, you're not going to do the deal there and then. If you have to go and visit the property, view the property, and build up a relationship with them. Some of the people we are working with, I've been working with probably for 6 months or more, and only now I'm getting to the point where we are actually doing a deal on their properties. We deal with private individuals. We also deal with investors looking to sell some of their properties. So it can be a very quick process if they're open to different ways of looking at things and prepared to do a deal with us. We can potentially sell their property within a few days. But other times it can take a little longer. Sometimes we will give them advice and they'll go away and they'll go to an estate agent and they'll look at other ways of selling it. And sometimes, as I say, they'll come back in 4 or 5 months' time saying, well, we've tried this, we've tried an estate agent, we've tried doing these different things and we can't sell it. We know in this situation we really want to sell it. Can you help us? So it's about building that relationship. It's like a lot of things, a lot of businesses in life. You don't always sell something the first attempt if you want. Build up the relationship with them, build up trust with them. I have people who I've spoken to and discussed property deals with, and they haven't gone with us, and that's fair enough. But then months later, they're coming back to me and said, "Oh, can you recommend a builder? And can you recommend this? Do you know a good solicitor?" So, and we're always happy to give that information because you never know. It could be years down the line where they actually come back and decide, well, actually, no, we want to work with you. So don't be disheartened and I know it can be quite difficult if you're dealing with potential sellers. You get some strange phone calls from people. I've been shouted at on the phone because I put a leaflet through somebody's door. I've had a woman who left numerous messages, and I eventually managed to get back to her. And it was a really strange conversation because she didn't have a property for sale. She just wanted to have a date with somebody. So if you're looking for a date, try and sell houses, and you never know what might happen. It's incredible the phone calls you get. You have to develop a little bit of a thick skin with some of this stuff, because you will get abuse if you're trying to source deals and put deals together. You will get abuse off people, but then you do get some quite funny conversations which can give you a good laugh as well. So yeah, it's a good way of making some extra money sourcing property, and there are lots of different options and different ways of doing things. But yeah, develop a thick skin before you start, and you'll be well on the way to making your living in it.
Apart from the thick skin that you need, what other tips can you give to anybody for dealing with sellers, or even if they're thinking of starting up a property sourcing business?
I think the biggest thing with all of this is to be completely honest with people. I've known people, promise the world, yes, we'll give you full market value, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do something else. Be honest. If you're going to try and source properties, tell people who you are and what you do. Tell them you're an investor. Tell them that you work with other investors. Be completely open so that you're on the right footing right from the start. And that way, everybody knows where they are. It's if you start trying to make things up or make promises that you can't keep, then not only will you potentially lose that potential client, you're going to get a reputation for doing it as well, and you're never going to make your way in it. It's like anything, like property is notorious for having a lot of con men and sharks in it, and they will tell you anything and promise you anything. Be honest. Just be completely honest with people, and it pays off at the end of the day. Any deals you do, and I get asked about this quite a lot, is which side are you on? Are you on the seller's side, or are you on the buyer's side? Are you trying to sort of get as much as possible out of the seller so that the buyer can get a bigger profit, or vice versa? And the simple answer is that all these deals have to work for everybody. So they have to work for the seller. There has to be a good deal there for the seller. There has to be a good deal there for the buyer, and there has to be something in for us as well. Like the lady I was saying who was in financial difficulty and had rented the house, etc. To be honest, we could have massively taken advantage of her and done a deal with her where at the end of the lease she would have had to pay more money, and she would have been back in the same financial situation as she was at the start. We could have made a lot more money. The buyer could have made a lot more money. But that's not what this is about. It's doing deals that work for everybody. And you can't work with every seller, because not every seller is open to the sorts of things that we do. But for the ones that are, you have to make sure the deals work.
Right. Yeah, I know that one of the things we've talked about is someone who wants to get into property sourcing seem to think that they can do it instantly. And that's not the case. It does take a little bit of time to build that relationship and to get the momentum going to start aiming off property sourcing.
It does. It's a big learning curve with some of this stuff, to be honest. It's taken me a long. I've been doing this for around about a year now, I suppose, and it's only the last few months that I can say I'm really getting somewhere. It's like any job, if you want any career, you have to learn the basics, and you have to put a lot of man hours in to learn that stuff. And this isn't a career, a job where somebody pays you while you're learning. You put a lot of hours in, you do a lot of work on it, and eventually you'll get the knowledge and the skill to do these deals. But until that point, you're probably not going to earn a lot of money. It's very slim pickings. But one of the, as you know, Karen, that some of the people in our mastermind groups have asked me quite a lot about sourcing and how we get into it. And one of the things that I've said to them is, okay, if you want to do this, rather than just jump in the deep end and try and sort it all out. I've had one-to-one meetings with these people, and I've told them what to say to potential sellers so that they can go out there. If they find a potential seller, I will ask them the basic, show them, tell them what basic questions to ask so they can have a conversation with them. And then if the seller is still interested, they can pass them on to me. And if we do the deal from it, then I will pay a commission on that. And so then they are learning, they are making some money of it. And as they get better at that, then, to be honest, they can cut me out and carry on and do it all themselves. But it's a way of, rather than spending 6, 7, 8 months a year trying to do this and making mistakes, do it bit by bit, and they can still earn some money from it.
Yeah, and it's an offer that not only yourself but Ben has made to people as well. But he's more than happy for anybody that's interested in getting into this type of business. And it is a business, and you need to treat it as a business. And the support is there with Pete or with Ben. Well, I think we've done quite well covering information on sellers.
Yeah.
Before we close tonight, there's one thing that it will lead into another webinar that we're going to do, but protecting the relationship you have with the seller to make sure that someone doesn't go in and try and do a different deal. You use contracts, Pete.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Depending on, we have people that we work with regularly, as in investors that we have close relationships with. And to be honest, with some of those, we don't have contracts. We have had, but we have a working relationship with them, and it works. But if you are going to do this and you have a contract with the seller, otherwise, as has happened to me recently, we advertised a property and somebody contacted me. They were interested in the property. They wanted to buy the property. I gave them all the information. I arranged a visit to the property for them. And in the meanwhile, then they went on land registry and looked up who the owner was and sent them a letter directly trying to cut me out. They actually told the seller that they wouldn't buy the property unless he cut us out of the deal and dealt directly with him. We have a relationship with that seller, and the seller wasn't particularly happy that this person had contacted them, and there's no way that he was going to sell the property to them. But if you don't have a contract with somebody, it's extremely easy to find out who the owner of the property is, and they can potentially go behind your back and cut you out of the deal. So yes, get the contracts in place. Otherwise, you could be working extremely hard just to lose out on the deal because somebody unscrupulously has gone behind your back and cut you out.
We will do more on contracts in later webinars, but the one thing I will say is it costs you £1
Yes.
to
Yes,
put a contract in place.
Every deal you have to hand money over. So if you hand £1 over, then that contract is legally binding. If you don't hand a pound over, then the contract doesn't mean anything. So yeah, hand £1 over and you can make thousands of pounds in return.
It's really not an expensive exercise to put that contract in place.
Again, it's a cheap way. If you want to get into property, as you know, Karen, because we've had conversations about it. I was never interested in getting into property and renting property, but a lot of other people are. And this is a way of getting into property, getting some money together so that if you do want to get into property and buy and rent the property out, this can potentially give you your starting money to get into the property.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up now and thank Pete for all the information he shared with us today. The slide is there with his name, and I put mine on there, but it's his phone number if you want to contact him, not mine. If you want more information from us, there is an email address there as well, where just email us and we'll happily answer any of your questions. I do want to mention that on the 11th of May, we have a Zero to Millionaire seminar in Newport. It's a one-day event where we cover 4 categories of investing, what we do through our mastermind groups. And talking of mastermind groups, we have a new one starting in Cardiff on the 7th of May. So have a look at our 273 Club page on Facebook. We would love to see you in the seminar on the 11th of May, and you're more than welcome to join us at a future mastermind group. And with that, I'm going to thank you and thank Pete for all those words of wisdom today, Pete. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Helen.
And
Thank you.
thank you all for joining us. And we will see you on the 4th Tuesday of the month, and hopefully we will have Ben back with us. So thank you very much, and good night.